Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight really is one of the most exhilarating and meaningful evenings of my career. This is the Academy Award moment that I speak about in my other speeches, when the actor tells you the story of how they practiced their acceptance speech with a shampoo bottle in front of the mirror. It was their dream to win an Academy Award, while my dream was to become a humanitarian. Their prize was an Oscar, while my prize is having the honor to speak in Canada for the first time in the city of Mississauga, where I went to high school, in the presence of my closest girlfriends, my Goodrow family, Yasmin Pupi, and a contingent of cousins who are also scattered across the room in support of this wonderful organization, SMILE Canada. I remember so vividly, when I was young, there was an evening that we watched a telethon on TV about famine in Africa, about children who were starving. And I was only 6 years old, but even at that young, tender age, I was distraught. I was frustrated, and I didn't understand that the solution to feeding these children was not so simple as just sending over some of our dinner, that we couldn't just share our food with them. And my mother explained to me that rather that you had to sponsor a child. But the amount of money at the time, which was quite menial to a little kid at 6 years old, was an enormous fortune. So I took a shoebox, and we cut a hole in the top, and I walked around to the homes of my neighbors, and I asked for money to sponsor my first child, so that we could feed a child in a faraway place that I had never even heard of. I knew then, at the age of 6, that there was pain and suffering in the world, and no matter what I was going through, that someone had it worse off. So I should not complain, and rather just figure it out. And then it was at the age of 12, in junior high school, that I discovered what the United Nations was, this massive international political organization that tries to make the world a better place. And all of a sudden, it was perfectly clear to me what I would do when I grew up. I would work for the United Nations Children's Fund, the humanitarian organization that has saved more children's lives than any other in the world. And so the preparation began at the age of 12. Volunteering for every social justice and charity project that my schools offered. I studied a second language throughout school, French. I focused on world issues in all of my school projects. And I participated in UN speech and writing competitions, thanks to the encouragement of one of my high school teachers at Father Michael Gates, just down the road. And by the time I was 17, just a few months after my mother had passed away, I was nominated Mississauga Youth Citizen of the Ward, and I was selected to represent Canada at the United Nations World Summit of Children. As part of my preparation, I studied international development at the University of Guelph, and I spent my 4th year of college in Ecuador so that I could learn a third language, Spanish. And all the while, I never lost sight of where I was going, of what was my goal, of where my purpose in life was, and that was to serve others. Somehow my preparation plan worked, and after graduating from Guelph with my undergrad, I won an employment competition, a paid internship with the United Nations Association of Canada as a junior professional consultant, and I was posted with the United Nations World Food Program in Ecuador in South America. And except for a 3-year stint with the private sector, that's what I've been doing up till now. 10 countries, a couple more languages, 2 emergency earthquake response operations, and here I am, 15 years later, the owner of my own business, at the age of 38, an international humanitarian who has lived and worked all over the world and witnessed some of the most horrific and destitute suffering that our cruel world allows to happen every single day. Today, around the world, there are 93 million children with disabilities under the age of 15, of which 80% live in developing countries. And too often, these children with disabilities are referred to as a problem, but they are nothing of the sort. You must see the child first. Given the opportunity, children with disabilities have the potential to make incredible, valuable contributions to their families, to their communities, and to society as a whole. Yes, surviving and thriving for these children can be especially difficult. They are at greater risk of being poor and born into a minority group and confront the additional challenges as a result of their impairments and the never-ending barriers that they are faced with. In many countries around the world, the response to the situation of children with disabilities is limited to institutionalization, abandonment, and neglect. This is a problem that is rooted in negative and paternalistic assumptions of incapacity and dependency, perpetuated by ignorance. Without change, without seeing the child first, children with disabilities will continue to have their rights neglected. They will experience discrimination, violence, and abuse. And the opportunities that they could have will be restricted and they will be excluded by society. Exclusion is often the consequence of invisibility. There are very few countries that have reliable information on how many of their citizens are people or children with disabilities, what the specifics of their impairments are, or the conditions in which they live. And although here in Canada we do have data on the number of people and children with disabilities, when the country issued its first report on the International Human Rights Treaty, the Convention on the Rights of the Child and Persons with Disabilities, the data dated back to 2006. Because of stigma and discrimination and cultural taboos, even adoring parents and family members can be reluctant to report if their child has a disability. And that can be whether they're trying to avoid being shunned in a community, or maybe they're overprotective of their child, or maybe both. If a child is born with an impairment, sometimes their birth is not even registered. And we are thus excluding that child from fulfilling their right to education, health services, and also to social care. Children must be counted. They must have their birth certificate. Their birth certificate is their passport to life. In Madagascar, there was one study done that found that ignorance about disability among parents was so common that 40% believed mistakenly that disabilities were contagious. A 2009 study in Vietnam reported that although there was general acceptance and tolerance for children with disabilities, their appearance in public holidays, such as Tet, which celebrates the lunar calendar, was considered detrimental to good fortune. This cannot happen. We must ensure that this does not happen. We must see the child first. Depending on the type of disability that a child has, where they live, the culture or the class of which they belong to, they will face different types of exclusion. Those who live in rural and indigenous communities have to contend with multiple barriers and disadvantages. First, they have disabilities. They belong to marginalized groups. They live in remote locations that already have little or no access to services. So here I am today before you, a voice for those children, those most vulnerable and marginalized, with the hope that they will be seen, that they will be counted. I am exactly where I have always dreamed of being in my life, with one little change, and that's my Lamborghini here. I grew up like many of you, running, jumping, skiing, skating, dancing. The first nightclub I ever went to was 24 years ago with these young ladies, the Mix in Mississauga. How I loved to dance, how I still love to dance. But as an adult, I began to lose my balance and fall inexplicably. And 8 years ago, at the age of 30, in the prime of my life, I was diagnosed with a rare recessive genetic condition that affects my entire body, a muscle wasting disease that leads to severe incapacity within 10 to 15 years of its onset. It is a progressive condition for which there is no cure and there is no approved treatment. Today, I am 12 years in since that first inexplicable fall, and although I am still walking with my Lamborghini and I ride horses twice a week, the doctors recently told me that now I am too weak to ever carry my own children. and that was heartbreaking to hear. When I was diagnosed, doctors told me to quit my UN career, to move home to live with my parents, and to prepare for a wheelchair or worse. For me, that was not an option. And soon after I left for Southern Africa, I moved to accept a post with UNICEF Angola. And then I went on to assignments in Botswana, China, Madagascar, grad school in Italy, then back to UNICEF in Thailand and in Mozambique. And 5 years after my diagnosis, when UNICEF had asked if I would go to Haiti after the earthquake, the devastating earthquake of 2010, I was using the aid of leg braces and 2 canes to walk. You cannot imagine how many people told me, you can't go. You won't be able to manage in such a difficult environment, that of what was Haiti after the 2010 earthquake. But I was determined and devoted to my humanitarian career. I would not be discouraged by anyone or anything. And my colleagues in Haiti, they helped me on a daily basis. Most of them had never met anyone with a disability, let alone a foreigner with a disability. The drivers, they used to pick up my dangling legs when I would struggle to pull myself up into the big UN field vehicles. And we worked on a military base in 12-foot shipping containers. And during hurricane season, there was no way I could go outside and not be blown over. So my colleague Dominique, we'd have a little cuddle. She'd hold my hand and help me go outside to go to the washroom. And when I'd have my meetings, whether they were with other colleagues or with the Secretary of State in Haiti, my colleague Susie would carry my papers. They helped me do my job with dignity. And because of my wobble, or sexy strut, depending on how you'd like to look at it, my primary job was fundraising, but UNICEF asked me to be the disability focal point for the agency, for the United Nations Children's Fund. And in this role, I would work with a range of stakeholders from the Secretary of State to NGOs that were on the ground trying to help children integrate into school, and specifically help children with disabilities get into rehab programs and inclusive schools. To be honest, when I accepted the role as disability focal point, I knew very little about the subject of disabilities other than the fact that for the first time in my life, I was facing barriers. I was facing discrimination because of my impairment, physical, stigma, and discrimination. I had never before faced this in my life, but I was up for the challenge, and I was up for the honor of being an empowering voice for those people with disabilities who did not have a voice for themselves. It hasn't always been easy, and once in a while, I do have difficulty not letting things bother me. A colleague once referred to me as that poor crippled girl. 2 women at a business conference that I was there with, President Clinton said, "Look at the way she walks. It's disgusting." And someone also said, "Well, now, no one surely will marry her." Although I don't get depressed, I do get tired, sometimes very, very tired. And I wonder how much more I can handle, especially when I cannot protect my parents and my family and friends from the reality that my body is dying. Or when a child with a disability who I am coaching cries because someone called them disabled, and they know that that is a bad word. They're just a little boy or a little girl with different abilities who want to play and go to school and make friends and be happy like every other child. I was asked by a mother whose daughter has a cognitive impairment, why does the word disability hurt? Or disabled, hurt? The word disabled hurts because it has such a negative connotation. In its literal meaning, and in terms of what society thinks about people and children with disabilities. We are often, in as many subtle as blatant ways, treated and thought of as inferior, decrepit, useless, weak, incapable, a charity case, unable, strange, deformed, embarrassing, not normal, and shameful. The dictionary lists even more. Webster's 1982 New Thesaurus lists antonyms to the word disabled as healthy, strong, and capable. Even in a more recent edition, that of 2009, antonyms to the word disabled included whole and wholesome. I confess to this mother that it sadly won't be the last time that her daughter is discriminated against. From my own experience and from spending time with that family, I shared another reason why being called disabled hurts. It is because in her daughter's world, as in my world, in her daughter's mind as in my mind, in her daughter's heart as in my heart, she is just herself. So when someone calls her disabled, it makes her feel that just being her is not good enough. And like her, I too have moments when people hurt my feelings, or a moment when someone makes me feel unconscious about my physical impairments. But it just pricks for a moment. I don't let it sting too long, because I know that those people themselves, they are hurting inside. And for whatever reason, they cannot see that there is nothing disabled about me. Deep down, what they are thinking and they are feeling really has nothing to do with me. When we put the first person first, a disability is not having an impairment. The disability is, in fact, the intersection between the impairments that they have and the barriers that society puts in front of us that prevent us from or making it more challenging for us to engage fully in every aspect of our life with a happy and confident disposition, to live with dignity. I traveled to Chicago last week, where a mother who has a cognitive impairment asked if she would meet me after she saw the MSMB speech. She said, "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be like Cara," which I think is one of the greatest compliments I have ever heard. And what a joy it was to meet Shea, this charming 10 little girl. And what was most charming about her is that she was much more interested in our shared love for ice cream and chocolate than she was about her mother's talk about her multiple surgeries and the leg braces and the walker and the wheelchair and the enormous costs. And while I appreciate the enormous financial and emotional strain her mother faces every day, I was proud to see that Shea was thriving, a true little champion who was facing adversity, relying on her sisters and her friends for help. And anyone who has the courage, the confidence, and the maturity to ask for help when they are in a moment in need, they are strong. They are empowered. And this strengthens the relationships. My friends here today and my family, they have been invaluable in helping me in every step of this journey. I have cried to them, Kathy, Jill, Patricia, and Katya, I don't know how many times, but it has made our bond stronger. Let me share with you that my beloved father, who is not here this evening because he lives in China, he blames himself for my condition. And it's not his fault. It's not anyone's fault. It has taken him years to learn how to talk about what's happening to me. Once we walked through a crowd and he was frustrated and confused and nervous I would get hurt. And he was like, excuse us, we have a problem here. We need to get through. And I sat him down and I told him, I am not a problem. And my impairment is not a problem. The day that I can no longer make you laugh is when we have a problem. And he felt ashamed because he didn't realize what his words were implying or how they might make me feel. And I, of course, was not mad at him. My father is my guiding grace. I revere him and I adore him. And because I love him so much and because he loves me, I am not disappointed when he does not have the words to describe what is happening to me. I share with him this new journey, and together we learn. We're learning every single day. We do not ignore what is happening to me, nor do we try to hide it from anyone, not even in our huge Indian family. We try to educate people and choose the right words words that I am comfortable with to describe my illness and what disability really is. And thanks to his openness and honesty and that of my friends and family here, I am very proud to be as unique and different as I am. If the barriers that society puts up in front of us are taken down, people with disabilities are perfectly able to engage in their own way. SMILE Canada is an organization that is breaking down barriers and providing an inclusive and accepting environment, connecting families to essential services so that they and their children can receive the care and the services that they need, and so that they also may feel proud to be as unique as they are. Over the past few years, I have learned that the physical weakness in me is not me, it's just the disease. Nevertheless, I become impatient with my body when I cannot move as fast as I once did, but eagerly just want to get up and go. Whether that's getting dressed every morning, or whether it's lifting my legs into my car so that I can rush off to my horse riding lesson. I become frustrated when I'm not strong enough to bend down to reach the cooking pots at the back of the cupboard, and sad that I am not strong enough to lift my 2-year-old nephew, Sebastian, without sitting down first. And having said this, every day I have moments of pure joy and happiness when I drive to the stables and I ride my horse, or I cook for my friends, or enjoy that most beautiful cuddle with Sebastian. All I can do is live in the moment. And when it comes to all the loss that has happened, and the loss that is to come, I just don't dwell on it. Rather, I choose to celebrate the moments of when I was physically strong, when I played tennis with my father, and when I danced my heart out all night long on so many dance floors with all of my friends. No matter what this disease takes away from me, I will never lose those wonderful memories or the people who I have made them with. Please do not think I am suffering. I am not suffering. I am struggling. I am struggling to be a part of things. I am struggling to stay connected. I am struggling to be who I once was and keep up with my hyper mind. I'm struggling to maintain my ambitious career and thrive with an active lifestyle that I have always known. I am a proud woman to be living with a disability, proud to be a Canadian living with a disability. Another part of human diversity, a proud member of such a dynamic community, that of people of different abilities, each of us unique and one of a kind. And because of the loving kindness and the gestures of the people in my life, I continue to live a happy, active, and full life with dignity. On one trip home to the Goodrow farm, James surprised me with a handrail he built on the front steps of the house. And when he showed it to me, it was not with pity, but rather with pride and respect. And the gesture was so thoughtful, and it meant the world to me, just as much as the way that he treats me. Because the truth is, I do need assistance, and that's just fine. It is with the appreciation that I have for people like him and the perspective that I have developed of being a woman living with a disability that I keep on going. I keep on going because my work with and for children is important. I keep on going because there are too many people with disabilities who are not being seen. I keep on going because society needs to keep seeing a person with a disability break down barriers. Never forget that what is within you is stronger than what's in your way. Thank you for the honor of speaking tonight, and thank you for supporting SMILE Canada.